Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's number one industrial automation product and technology show, thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of this audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. Now, for those new to the show, my name is Sean Tierney of Insights in Automation, and each week I invite a new vendor to come on the show to talk to us about their products and technologies. And during their presentation, I play the role of the audience, asking questions I think you might have and some questions I have as well. Now, given that a quarter of you guys out there are only listening and doing something else while you listen, maybe driving to work or walking the dog, if anything comes up in the visuals that I think you guys may want to know about, I'll try to call that out for you. With that said, though, I want to welcome Dennis Wiley back to the show, along with Liz Prozac. Guys, thank you for coming on. I'm really looking forward to learning what's new and next in Logix. And I know we talked in the pre-show about some of the stuff you're going to talk about. So without further ado, Liz, since this is your first time on the show, I'm going to turn it over to you. Before you jump into your slides, could you please tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's really great to be here, first of all. So thanks for having me and Dennis. So I have been with Rockwell for about 20 years. In fact, I just hit my 20-year anniversary last month, which is really exciting. I have been in I'm a commercial portfolio manager for the Logix team. So for all of large control and IO at Rockwell. And in my past 20 years, I've done a lot of different roles, technical, marketing, product management. So here I am with the Logix team and Dennis today. Dennis, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Well, I'm glad to be back with everybody. Again, my name's Dennis Wiley. I'm a principal product manager here at Rockwell Automation. It's a recent achievement after 29 years with the company, focused on our current ControlLogix platform and portfolio and working towards that next generation product for us. I take all the requirements of all the asks and we try to stack them up, the hundreds of requests we get, and try to, build it out into the products that we deliver. So yes, thanks, Sean, for having us back.
Yeah, and thank you guys for coming on. And Liz, I think you're going to start, right?
Yes. Today we're going to focus on our new controller, the L9. But before we get into all that, and I'll hand that over to Dennis, but before we get into all that, I'm just going to quickly kind of go over what we've been up to for the past few years and some of the new product introductions that we've released. So first, starting with Logix, I think, Sean, you said earlier that everybody loves Logix, right? So Logix, and why is that? It's because we have one controller and one platform that can do it all, right? So whether that's discrete control, process control, batch robotics, we can kind of cover all the range between discrete, hybrid, and the process space. So I think this message is kind of not new, but it's something that is really important to highlight as we get into talking about the L9. Can go into that next slide there, Dennis. So what's new? What have we been up to? So some of the things that we've been doing since I've been in the team, actually, for a couple of years now, we've released OPC UA. So we support OPC UA in the Logix controller natively. So, you just use your L8 controller, for example, your L9 controller. OPC UA is supported natively in the firmware. The other, and this is also in Compact Logix as well, in both platforms, ControlLogix and Compact Logix. Next there, we have the Embedded Edge Compute module, which is an in-chassis module, which allows you to do FactoryTalk optics out of the box. It allows you to use OPC UA as well. You can basically take all the data from your controller, since it's communicating with the controller through the backplane, and use all that data to do pre-processing and post-processing of data. So this is really kind of an IT/OT device, an edge gateway in a way, which you can use in the chassis. So it really allows you to expand the capabilities of Logix and kind of think of it as like a companion to the Logix controller. What did I miss there? We also just released the second version of firmware for that module right around Automation Fair last year, which allows you to do containerization with Docker containers. So you can host and deploy all sorts of applications on containerized on this device. The next two are our fully redundant I/O, the 5015 platform. That's the catalog, which is called Flex HA 5000 I/O. We released this one a couple of years ago, and it is all about fully fault-tolerant applications. That's what it's intended for. And it is, we've released a universal I/O there so that you can configure the modules for digital, analog, and also HART. We also have a Compact Logix highly integrated HART modules as well for the Compact Logix platform. So kind of piggybacking off of that message about analog I/O. And then in the next slide, thank you, this was a big launch. So we just released Logix SIS. So this is our process and hybrid solution. SIS is safety instrumented systems. So this is essentially our solution for meeting SIL 2 PLD and SIL 3 PLE applications in the process and hybrid safety space. So this solution will leverage as you can see there in the picture on the left, the safety controllers and a redundant configuration. So this is kind of a redundant safety application. I talked already about the embedded edge compute with containerization in the last slide. So this kind of highlights that this is the second release of the module. And then moving into the safety conversation again, we've also released another variant of our Guard Logix controllers. And then also moving into the next lane as well, we have the XT portfolio, which is coming out and rolling out over the next couple of years. So the Guard Logix L85ES controller gives you 2 times the increase standard memory, and also has an XT variant, which is XT corrosive. It's a enhanced XT, if you will, if you've heard of XT before. And then we have, again, the whole portfolio of Control Logix XT coming out and rolling out over the next couple of years. So next is just a slide about Logix. And so after going through the last couple of slides and some of the things that we've been up to, really what message I want to leave you with is that Logix is beyond just control. So we do, as I mentioned, multidiscipline control with the Logix controller and the Logix platform. And going into the L9 conversation, we'll be doing even faster performance and capacity on the L9, which I'll let Dennis talk about. And we can also kind of look forward into some of these edge solutions in the Logix platform with the compute as well. So I hope that wasn't too fast. I just had a lot to cover and was really excited about telling everyone about what we've been doing and what we're actually going to be enabling with L9 as well moving forward. So L9 will be applicable to all of the things that I just talked about. And I will, with that, unless there's a question, I will hand it over to Dennis.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, so for the listeners, so we've been busy. We haven't been with you for a little while, but that's because we've been busy, as you can see, bringing more communications into the portfolio. An important point for as Liz mentioned here is, we are all about protecting your installed base, protecting that investment you have in Logix out there, right? So I think, Sean, we are, if my numbers are right, and maybe off, give or take a % or 2, but we're approaching 3 million installed systems now for Logix. That's a milestone of wow, right? You and I started back in PLC 2s or before. Hard to believe where we are with this portfolio. So, as we're going to talk about with the next generation controller, I think it's no surprise, we had an L6, an L7, and L8. I bet you every listener could say, I bet you the next one's going to be L9. I know we're very creatures of habit at Rockwell sometimes, right? So as I said, I'm a principal product manager. The last 3 controller launches and this one are mine. So, hit me with your questions, hit me with your wants, your desires. Tell me what you don't like too. What you don't like is just as important as what you do like, right? I'll do more of the things that you like. And if there's a problem, you got to let us know, all right? We'll make it better. All right, so let's jump into it. So I know Sean had shared some of these slides, maybe in a previous podcast that he's done. There's some minor adjustments here since the initial rollout. But let's start with, again, this is the L9. It is the newest member of our integrated architecture family, and our integrated architecture and Factory Talk ecosystem is all about the products working together, right? That they seamlessly, when you plug them in together, that they can communicate, they identify each other, there's security connections, licenses between to make sure things authenticate. It's all about that ecosystem. Think of it a lot like, Apple devices, your Mac, your Apple TV, your iPhone, your iPad, they all kind of seamlessly work together. That's kind of what we're after. But we also, like I said, we protect that installed base, right? So we have to kind of play in the new world, but we also have to kind of protect that. We know there are a lot of systems out there still running, early generation control logic. So we want to protect those. As Sean had mentioned in his version, that this is a new way of doing controls for us, right? So all of these controllers are going to be safety capable out of the box. So in the previous generations, we had guard logics or red versions of the products. When we went to the L8, we have aligned list prices so that the pricing, you didn't have to pay a premium for safety functionality. No one pays extra for the brakes on their car, right? So same thing here, having safety included out of the gate is a game changer. It's no price difference, and we felt there's no sense carrying a separate version. Why not enable all of these products that we sell to have safety? If you don't need it, don't use it. When it's cold outside, don't turn on the air conditioning, but the car still came with air conditioning, right? So everything's safety capable, still 2 PLD out of the box, just like we do with the L8s today. Right. So one controller is safety capable out of the box. When you partner that with the partner, the L9 partner for safety, that will elevate it just like it does today to the SIL 3 level of safety. Okay. We'll have 3 versions of this portfolio. We'll have standard products as we do today, normal 0 to 60C, no harsh requirements from industry for corrosion or conformal coating. We'll have our XT version, as Liz alluded to, and an XT, Sean, maybe something we do on another episode because there's a lot of effort that we put around that. We spent close to $10 million on this journey, all about hardening the electronics, the new miniaturized electronics into products, and getting extended temperature ranges. And then we're going to have a process variants of this product with more advanced process instructions. So it's still the standard product, but it's just an enablement behind the scenes to do more advanced process capabilities, right? So it's the same portfolio, same products across everything. The keys about this, when I tell our users and our customers, is everything about this platform was targeting at least a 2x improvement over what the current generation products are, right? So scan times, this is going to be twice as fast what the L8 was, right? If we have a majority of our install base is L7, so all of those users out there that have waited to modernize, are just getting hit today with, we have a cybersecurity requirement now. We got to find a cybersecure controller, right? As you migrate forward, you're going to see a 40 times improvement in performance. I mean, that's a big, big deal. We're also going to take advantage of newer technologies and faster memory on board. And some of these new faster memory and more miniaturized parts allows me to double the amount of memory. So we're going to be introducing variants of this product upwards towards 80 megabytes. Right. So that's kind of, twice what we do today. And then each memory size along the way, we were able to incrementally give you a little bit more memory, about another 10 or 15% or so, depending on the catalog improvements there. Right. We're also going to do something different is where before you had, as a user, had to decide, safety memory and standard memory are a little bit different behind the scenes. There are extra data integrity checks that are required, the types of memory devices for safety memory to guarantee that safety level that we are after. It's a little bit different. But you, as a user previously, you had to kind of figure out, I had so much standard memory and how much safety memory am I going to need? And you bought a product that was kind of locked in that way. Today's L9, where we're targeting, is it's going to be one sum of memory. Right? We'll use the number of 80 megabytes for the new large one. 80 megabytes of memory. And then as a user, you can decide how much of that memory you would like to set aside or allocate or use for safety functions. Right, so you have some flexibility. So if you say, oh, we have 3 megs of safety, but we really need 3.5, that's not a problem. As long as you have total memory still available, you will have some latitude to add safety application code to the product. Now there is a maximum size of this up to 12 megabytes, right? Which is again twice what we do today. So we have not had anybody hit our maximum limits today. So I'm pretty confident 12 megabytes of safety memory is going to cover us for a while. As we said, everything's twice. We are going to be increasing the number of motion axes we support, as well as increasing the performance of motion overall with this product. So that's more servo controls, both real and virtual, as well as twice the performance of what we do with an L8. So you get more motion a little bit faster. The Ethernet networks, everything today is on Ethernet, moving more and more. We now have in-cabinet Ethernet that we're releasing here at Rockwell. So even all the way down to push buttons, they're going to be a node on the network anymore, right? So we're going to enable our products with dual Ethernet ports. These will be twisted pair ports, 1 gigabyte. They will be configurable either in a independent IP address, so you can have segmentation. You can have an enterprise network and an IO network, or an HMI network and a safety network, whatever you choose. Or you could configure them as a resilient ring. You can configure them as part of a DLR network, and then they can participate on the ring as well, so that you have that fault tolerance of, no single cable break can kind of take you out of service. Also, what we did in the L8, which was met with both good and bad by our users, was we moved away from standalone tools such as task monitoring tools. We embedded it into the product. Everybody's got a browser, and they can kind of hit the product and get all that rich information of task overlap, memory consumption, CPU utilization, those types of things. That prevented people from having to make sure that they always have the latest version of the tools. We'll just build it into the product. With that, users wanted some programmatic access to that information. In some configurations, when you did that, you didn't get that access with the web browser. So you kind of lost some of that diagnostic view of what was going on. So what we're doing, the engineering teams here at Rockwell, we're going to make much of that information now programmatically accessible to you. So if you want to monitor CPU utilization or memory consumption, those types of things, that'll just be a tag that you can define, read out. And then if you wanted to push that to an HMI, move that into some data quality system or some other analytics, you'll have that capability, completely flexible in that regards. While we're doubling Ethernet networks, probably ought to double the number of Ethernet devices. Like I said, we're now seeing in-cabinet Ethernet, things as simple as push buttons and prox sensors starting to come onto the Ethernet network. So we want to be ready for this. Yes, 600 Ethernet nodes seems like a lot, but when you're doing large motor control centers where you might have 300 or 400 motors that are being controlled, and you may only want to monitor currents or overloads or things like that can quickly start eating up as you do these monitoring or these big process systems. All right, so we're ready with this. This product will be capable of upwards of 600 Ethernet nodes on the largest memory size controllers, and those are completely dependent on, your project. Obviously, as you add an Ethernet device, there is some amount of ladder logics or structured text or coding that goes behind that. So, there's a balance of, if you have 600 devices, am I going to have enough memory to do what I want to do? So, 600 large drives may you may not get there because you'll run out of ladder logic space, for instance, right? As we move to redundancy, run redundancy today in an L8 was not the improvement. I would just be frank with everyone, it was not quite the improvement we were hoping for, right? So we spent some extra time here with the L8 controller and what it was doing, and we're happy to report that as part of those Ethernet ports, we are able to take advantage of a front port and set up a gigabyte crossload between primary and secondary controllers here. So now you'll get that true double performance in those high availability redundancy systems here, right? So this will be a big deal for our redundant process customers that have, really have that need for high performance as well as high capacities, right? One thing with this product is as it's launching, we are also doing a refresh and a modernization, if you will, of our redundancy modules. So you'll see us move from an RM2 to an RM3. Single slots, drop-in replacement. Just think of it, hey, you're just refreshing it. But with that, the L9 will begin its life only supporting this RM3. right? So if you have an existing system today and you wanted to modernize to an RM3, or sorry, to a redundant L9, you would also bring forward the RM3 to do that. That's part of that enablement that we're doing to get that doubled performance, right? And you'll just configure that front port. It'll be a checkbox into the controller properties to say, hey, I'd like to take advantage of the redundancy front port crossload. And then that will dedicate those Ethernet channels to say, all right, well, I'm going to do my data crossload between the devices right through that gigabit network. It takes off backplane latencies. It takes off any delays, a scan inside the controller. It just does it right out the front port. With this product also, SIP security is king. What the users and listeners need to understand is that going forward in a very short period of time, there will be products that will not be able to be shipped globally due to new cyber resiliency acts in several regions across the world. So products that are not cyber secure, they're just not going to allow them into the countries very soon, right? And very soon meaning in the next year or so, right? So this product, just like our L8 product, was designed all cyber secure in mind. So it's ready for that new Cyber Resiliency Act. But we are also taking advantage in this design of putting in some, what I'll say, hardware assist for cybersecurity, right? So we have the SIP security network is what we standardize and use here at Rockwell. And this device has a security assist chip on board to process that cybersecurity. So we're older technology. When you enabled some things like integrity and authenticity and confidentiality of your data, that kind of impacted the packet throughput rate that you'd get out of the product. With this, you don't have that impact anymore because there's a hardware assist that goes on behind the scenes that you don't have to do anything about it. We take care of it for you, right? But when you turn on those security levers that you want, you won't have to worry about, how's that going to degrade my communications performance? It's built in. So as we say, we're really trying to push that multi-discipline controller, beyond where it's ever been before, right? So let's take another look under the hood here. So, the first thing I tell people, Sean, and, I'll bring you up on the stage, so to speak, is, so what's the first thing you notice on the picture right now that's on the screen? What seems to be missing?
Yeah, great question. So I don't know. Where's the front door?
So the most obvious thing, and when I say it, everybody goes, oh, wow, Dennis, you're right.
The key switch.
The key switch, right? So since all the way back to the very first PLCs, there was always a perceived key switch. It was never really a key because a key would indicate that it would be different for every controller, right? It was simply an operator handle that was shaped like a key, right? Right. So there was this perception, oh my gosh, you're taking the key away. It was never a key. You could have put a screwdriver in there and rotated it and it would have worked just as easily. Right. So what we're doing with this, and we'll go under the hood now, right, is we're going to go to a tried and true mode change switch, right? A toggle like we do in our compact Logix family now. So we've been shipping this for probably 2 decades now, right? So we know it's very reliable. The challenge with that key is the amount of real estate behind the scenes that the users don't see. You think about your thumb, right? And I don't know if the users see my face on the screen, but if you think about the size of your thumb, right, that is sticking inside the product. And that's consuming and overlaying on top of real estate that I would like to use for things like, second Ethernet ports. Things like, hey, why don't we look at, things like USB-C, some newer technologies, as well as building a hardware portfolio that we will be able to do more with in the next decade, right? We don't try to build a product for today. We try to build a product that starts today, and then we roll and fill out and do other things with over the course of a decade or so, right? So key is the first thing that you'll notice most people notice is changed. It's a mode position switch. It's still got run, remote, and program just like you did before. So if you want to lock it into hard run to prevent flashing of firmware or online edits or things like that, you still just bump it into the run mode and leave it there, and it works just like it does on compact Logix today. So first notice, remote switch. We talked about USB-C. We know as part of things like cyber resiliency, there are requirements globally for technologies, and EMEA, our European colleagues, they've kind of all standardized around one USB format, and that's USB-C. Right. Mm-hmm. In fact, and that's mostly for the folks is like, you think about all the different types of USBs that are out there and the types of chargers that are out there. It kind of stems from, oh my gosh, the landfills are filled with USB-A, USB-B, USB, so standardized. We're going to just do that out of the gate. So this will be right out of the gate USB-C, same functionality as we have today with the L8. You still do your firmware flashing, configs, upload, downloads, everything else about that remains the same, just done over USB-C. Normally the joke we got was, oh, I can charge my cell phone now from the PLC. Yeah, well, just hang on a second there. You'll probably not a good idea, but maybe, right? We're also going to take advantage to get some of that real estate on those circuit boards. We're going to move to a smaller micro SD card. I did some studies with our customers of how many people even know the card that we provide exists today. We give every user a 2 gigabyte card today in an L8, which is magnitudes more than the memory that you would really need. But we give you a 2 gigabyte. And nobody really ejects them typically. Typically, we use for if there is a major fault on the controller, we kind of record a memory dump, if you will, and then that could be sent to our tech support, and then we can kind of start picking it apart to see, what happened. Was this a user-generated programming issue? Was this some firmware anomaly? Was damage done to the board? Why did this thing go down? That's kind of what we use that card for. So we're going to move to a micro SD card again to bias that real estate on the board, as well as kind of modernize to a more current technology. We'll be providing at no cost with the product an 8 gigabyte card. Again, magnitudes more than what you would need, but it'll be in every controller that we sell. We talked about the 2 Ethernet ports already. There is a reset button that's under there. Just take solace in knowing that you can't just push it and it's going to reset, right? That is only read on a power up condition, right? And that's used to say, oh, I set it in the security zone. I can't gain access. I lost my password, or, oh, what, I need to go back to an out of the box state, right? If you hold that on a power up, that's the only time we really read that, right? And then you'll watch the screen, the little display that's on there, and it'll give you directions, continue to hold for X number of seconds, and then we'll default it to an out of the box state. I can't, if you forget your passwords, I'm not allowed to unlock things, right? That'd be violation of cybersecurity rules. So all I can do is provide you to get you back to a starting point. So make sure you're saving your password, saving your projects, right? But I will always be able to get you back to a starting point with this product. You never have to worry about it's a brick. I can't do anything with it, and I got to start. Just no worries there. Couple things. So the access door is going to be a vertical lift. Part of this was done as an aid to put out of sight, out of mind, right? As a tamper kind of prevention mechanism. Or when the key was right in their face, it's like that red button that says, don't push it. Everybody's people are, I'm going to push it. I got to know why, right? So putting those things behind the door is a way that, most casual users are not going to go, I wonder what this does, right? It's just kind of hidden. So it's a way to kind of, keep that tampering away. But behind that door, we're also going to be doing things a little bit differently. You're going to see that all of what we call the decorations of the product, the labels, the printing on the front is all going to be laser engraved. A couple reasons. One, it's a little more resilient, lasts a little longer than paper labels. We do get, products that are sent back where I have no idea how some of the users do what they do to our labels, but they come back pretty mangled and scratched up and whatnot. So having it embedded on the product is a little bit more robust, but it's also an aid for us. We do see a high amount of counterfeiting and gray market of industrial control products and of our controllers, right? So this is another hurdle that we're going to put in place where, they may be more readily able to counterfeit a label when it's embossed into the plastic like that. It makes it a much bigger hurdle for them. So to give our users a little bit more confidence that when they get a product like this, that it's got that authenticity. We'll also be adding this QR code. So this will be again another European standard that we're going to have to adhere to as we do with all of them. But there's a product passport that's becoming a thing that has to, a user wants to scan this product and it wants to get all the attributes of the product, especially things like power consumption for, calculating eco footprints and whatnot. So we're going to embed a QR code on the front. That code will be used to register the product. So if you want to take ownership and as an authenticity check again, hey, I take this serial number as my own, you can register it here. You'll have full access just by scanning that code to all the users' manuals, knowledge databases, firmware and software loads. Hey, is there a new version of firmware? Sure. You scan it, they'll take you there. Any security advisories, as well as, geez, I need to talk to somebody at Rockwell. Scan that, and there's a button there that says start a chat with tech support. So it's really a one-stop shop right from that QR code, right? So that's kind of a lot of under the hood, so to speak, what's going there, right? All right, so we look at the catalog numbering. I'm also going to make a little bit of changes in how we do catalog numbering here, trying to put some, logic to the catalog number, because today we sell an L81 and an L82, L83, and if you ask anybody, including myself, I'm always like, yeah, which one had the 20 mega memory? And you always kind of got to look it up, right? So I was like, we can fix this right now, right? Why don't we just include this? Because we're going to have new variants of memory. Let's just put the memory right in the catalog number. So you'll still have, like we did, L8. This is going to be L9, but the next digits are going to be how much memory do you have, right? And then followed by which networks do you have? We are looking at a lower end version of Control Logix where we might not even offer an Ethernet port because somebody wants to do a different network, or now they prefer to have their Ethernet network separate, and they don't want to have that added cost of an embedded Ethernet. So we're looking at adding one of those. And I want to leave the door open for futures of, well, maybe we add SFPs or fiber directly to this. So I want to structure the catalog number out so that we have options and we could bring that to market quicker than having to reinvent a wheel, a few years later. As the positions roll out, everything's safety. So everything's going to have that next position as an S, but you'll also see that we'll have ones that are going to have our plant PAX advanced process instructions and safety. So you're going to have both of those together. And then I leave some space there for, potential new variants. Who knows what the world holds. Moore's law is never truer than it is today of how quickly things move. And then the last will be whether you want a standard product, something that's unrated, doesn't have any corrosion ratings or certifications to it, or you have a harsh environment and you have a corrosive nature. These are typically underground mines, water, wastewater, food and bev, sometimes with the cleaners that they use, mining, that's a big one, and tire, rubber. I think I said mining twice, but tire and rubber, the off gassing, when you vulcanize rubber, there's a lot of sulfur content in the air. So these are things to kind of help that those electronics survive. All right, this is probably the slide. As Sean mentioned, if you're not able to see us right now, this is one of those slides you're probably going to want to come back and take a look at, right? So what I've done is I've tried to put together at least at a high level comparison of what an L7 controller compared to an L8 controller compared to an L9 controller. So some of the big rocks, right? Much of this we covered, right? Which is memory sizes are growing, performance is growing, but even behind the scenes, things like the number of class 3 messages. These are message instructions that you might put in your project. Today we can do 256 in and 256 out in an L8. That was up from a total of 512 combined in an L7. So we doubled it with the L7, and we're going to add an additional quantity. We're going to go up to 384 in and 384 out with the L9. Again, we don't have anybody that's reached that limit, but we know as more devices come on the network, we want to be prepared, right? Same thing with number of concurrent clients and servers. We're going to double. So today we support 256 concurrent unconnected clients. We're going to go to 512. Number of tag-based alarms, we're going to characterize this, but we are targeting over 10,000 and approaching 20,000. So as the project rolls on and they do this, we're going to kind of get you more better boundaries on those numbers, but that's what we're targeting today, right? And you'll see here on the Ethernet packets, we're going to, today it's 128,000, but I mentioned that security assist circuitry that we put on board. As you turned on things like integrity and confidentiality of your data, that caused extra processing behind the scenes that slowed down the packets that you could process through. With this new product, it's 164,000 packets. You get a 25% increase of where we were at, and you don't really see the penalties at all. I think the early returns it was like a 1 or 2% hit if you turn on all 3 levers of security. So really an improvement. There should be no reason why a user doesn't, I can't turn on security because the application won't run. No, that's not expected here, right? We'll begin life at version 38. So if those, users want to rally around the starting point, don't lock yourselves into a version right now. If you plan on wanting to use the L9, wait till the version 38, where we're going to have hopefully have all of our catalog numbers released at the same time. And then with that, if you look to the right, this is kind of the breakdown of how it's going to look catalog number wise, 2 through 80 megabytes. and you'll see the kind of the number of Ethernet nodes that each level will support. Obviously different resources on the different sizes, different boards, as well as the amount of local OPC UA tag support, right? So as few as 300 and as much as 100,000. Now, and this is usually where I have the conversation. Liz mentioned our Factory Talk Edge compute, right? Keep in mind, the name of this product is a controller. If you start doing 100,000 data tag throughput through the controller, it's going to be a gateway and not a controller, right? So that's why we have the Factory Talk Edge compute, right? While it is possible to do that remember, you're going to be competing for resources on the product if you try to load that much. That's why we have that kind of sidecar approach to this, right? So not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, remember, this is a controller first. Right? There are other avenues for large data loads like this, right? So that your controller can still perform, do all the robotics and all the high-speed motion and safety that you want, and still do this as well. Okay. I'm going fast, Sean. You guys just hit me if you can, if you got questions. So last slide that I really have on the L9. So there are some legacy functionality, and Sean, we should take our hat off and hang our head low on some of it, but, we're going to take out some capabilities. One is we talked about the RM2 is, getting a refreshment to the RM3, a little faster module, newer. It's going to allow us to, continue on for the next decades of redundancy. Things that are going away near and dear to Sean and my heart, DF1. DF1, my Lord, finally RS-232 communications is going away, right? SLC, PLC reads and writes, right? Again, while I concur, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of PLC5s still in service. There are probably tens to hundreds of thousands of SLCs probably still in service. Those older legacy networks take a lot of horsepower behind the scenes. They never were optimized. It was always, a heavy load. So we're going to take that out. We don't have a lot of people that try to interface those old systems up. And we have products with L7s and L8s that are still going to be available. They're not going anywhere. They're still going to be around. So if a user has a need to talk to an old legacy PLC5 or an SLC system, and they want to do messaging, this is primarily with messaging, then yes, you want to stick with those older platforms. The L9 is not going to be optimized for that. We're going to optimize for today, Ethernet, all of that. And lastly, Circos motion, like the DF1 and the SLC PLC, that is the older motion control network. We're going to take that out as well, and that gives us some bandwidth to get better performance on Ethernet motion. Okay. And with that, I've kind of reached the end of my L9 slides, but I am, Sean, if there are questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, no, I thought that was very interesting, and you made it easy by making everything pretty much twice as fast or twice as good as the L8, which is great. Twice as many ports. And, I had, full disclosure, I saw the earlier version of the slide, so I wasn't jumping in and asking a lot of questions, which is, just really trying to really, suck it in and really understand what you were saying. And I think some of the changes I just find so interesting. And, to your last slide, I don't think anybody's going to miss those features, even though, yeah, it kind of just feels sad. But, it's how long has it been since Logix came out? And, it's been
1999. So you launched in 19 years. Yes, it's hard to believe that, Sean. We have gotten that old, honestly. So yes, for the listeners, I mean, if we play this back, in 1999, 1998, the platform was released as a gateway. So we had ControlNet, DeviceNet, and Ethernet, and the whole feature of that was let us handle the communications across networks for you behind the scenes. You could put modules in there and they magically bridge, where in the old days with PLC5, you had to read the data off of one network, and then you had to produce a message to send it out another network, and then if that got it, and you had all this code to do it. We just do it once inside, and then very quickly it became, we put a controller in there, and then we put motion control in there, and then it's grown into, I'll be wrong, but I want to say 120 different I/O modules, multiple versions of communications. specialty modules of like waste scales from partners and resolver input modules, and you name it through a partner network. It's got a lot of everything. And the key to this is, folks, if you've got an early system from, let's say, 2000, and so you started in 2000, these products will still work in that chassis. Now, you got to be a little bit, I'll temper that a little bit, is those first generation chassis, the ventilation through there was not designed for these 4-core CPUs that we're using today. So if you wanted to do that, it would work, but you have to take into account you can't reach those maximum thermal limits of 60 or 70 C that we do today. You'd be kind of restricted down because you can't get rid of the heat, but it would still work. All those IO modules would work with an L9, no problem, right? There's nothing you have to do different. When you come from an L6 or a 7 or to an L8 and to an L9, we take care of all the project conversions for you behind the scenes. Right? We do produce, and we will, we're in the throes of updating that now, a modernization or what we call a controller replacement guide, right? That kind of points out, just like I had that side-by-side table of what's different, we also point out that there are things that we've told you to do in the early versions of the product because the CPU horsepower wasn't there to do it for you, that you don't have to do anymore. So there are opportunities that we say, hey, you used to do this to monitor that. You don't have to do that. That's a diagnostic now. So if you had 100 lines of ladder logic to do something, you might be able to just delete it because we just take care of it for you now.
Yeah, and I was just showing the audience this the other day how I took an L1 project and version 13 and brought it right into the newest platform I have here, the L7 and the 5380, and it just converts over. And again, yeah, there are some differences between versions. There's a UTC time change somewhere in there, but 99.9% of everything you did would come up. And if you have PLC 5s from the 80s and early 90s, and you need to talk to them, the LA is still there. Right?
Yes,
and Slick, I shouldn't leave the Slicks out as well. This is 505, 504s. And the LA is still, and that's still a relatively new product. It feels just like yesterday you and I were talking about the LA.
Oh my Lord, isn't it?
It does. Yeah. The time goes fast.
So 20, I'll get it wrong. So L7s were introduced. I launched those in 2010. So here we are in 2025. So it's got a pretty good run, and it's still an active product for us. I mean, I think that's one of the big questions the listeners are going to have is like, yeah, wait a minute, that was 2010 and it's still active. What's the story with this one? Well, we know that as we move to the L9, and as I said, there are new global standards, right, for cybersecurity that we cannot escape. Whether, Rockwell is a big automation company, but I can't influence world governments, right, very well. I mean, if they say this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to be cyber safe, we're just going to comply. We have to comply, right? Otherwise, I can't ship my products. So you're going to see those, L7. We'll probably start letting people know here, as the L9 rolls out the door that, hey, it's going to move into its active mature phase. And, for those who don't know the life cycles of Rockwell, we have 4. We have active, mature. Both of those are saying it's readily available. We still support it. All that active mature state is an indicator for our users that, look, there is probably a newer technology I'm selling. And there is a newer technology that I'm selling. You should, for a new installation, you really should be looking at that if you value, longevity, if you value contemporary hardware and functionality, right? When we move out of an active mature state someday in the future, we always try to provide a 2-year landing strip for our users to give them the opportunity to say, and we know that, life cycles change, just like for us, we get those life cycle notices on parts all the time, and we have to make adjustments. Maybe we buy a different supplier part, or maybe we look and we have to do a redesign to keep a product going. But when you get that, we want to provide our users at least a 2-year heads up that, go seek funding for either modernization and to go look at an L8 or an L9, or some users, with PLC 5s, we saw this of, well, you know what? They don't hardly ever fail. I'm just going to buy 2 and I'm just going to put them as a spare part. Okay, whatever you want to do, I give you 2 years to make your decisions before I make any actions of a product to go away. So it should be ample runway for our users to get to where they need to be.
With that, I'm going to close the show out. Anything else, Liz or Dennis?
Oh, thanks for having us. We're looking forward to more conversations. This was great.
Always a pleasure. You're going to hear more from us in the future.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Liz and Dennis for coming on and bringing us up to speed on what's new in Logix and talking about the 5590. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Rockwell for sponsoring this episode, making it completely ad-free. Now, if you remember, you probably noticed that I cut off about 15 minutes there. I asked some questions that took us way off the topic, so I decided to take that off. But members, you guys did get that in the raw edition that we released already. So in any case, I want to thank you all for tuning back in this week. We have more shows coming up. I'm really excited about some upcoming episodes. But right now, I do want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.